Today, it's not just a book launch, it's a celebration of the evolving language of Indian comics of images that speak, stories that move, and ideas that change the way we see the world. Today, we will also step behind the scenes with its creators through Art of Making Comics, an immersive session where the artists take us through their creative process from doodle to final artwork. Let us begin by welcoming the creative minds who have shaped this remarkable anthology, the editors of Longform 2025. Pinaki, our favorite Pinaki, a multiple award-winning graphic illustrator and designer, Pinaki has created over 600 book covers and twice won the Publishing Next Award for Best Cover Design in India. A Charles Wallace Trust Fellow and Associate Professor at Raja Peri Mohan College, he is also the Indian Comics Advisor at Magnasia, the world's largest Asian comic exhibition. Welcome to you. Please. Sir.
Oh, thank you.
Debkumar Mitra, comics editor, painter, and founder of the Longform Comics Collective. A visiting faculty at the National Institute of Design, he brings over 3 decades of experience in illustration and fine art. A Gordon N. Fisher Fellow from the University of Toronto, Debkumar's expertise bridges visual theory and artistic practice. KCC welcomes Debkumar Mitra. Shri Argha Manna, a cancer researcher turned comics artist, currently artist in residence at IIT Gandhinagar. His work explores the intersections of science, art, and society. A MIT Cast Fellow and Notre Dame Global Asia Fellow, Argha's unique approach connects academic inquiry with visual storytelling. KCC welcomes Argha Manna. So let's welcome Pinaki, Debkumar, and Argha, the editorial team behind Longform 2025. The anthology features some of India's most compelling contemporary voices in graphic storytelling. Joining us today are Sankha Banerjee, celebrated for his graphic novels based on Mahabharata, published by Penguin, and his award-winning book on Nelson Mandela. His work explores mythology, politics, and identity through bold visual narratives. Sankha Banerjee. Sir, welcome to KCC. Santanu Debnath, a painter and visual artist whose Wordless series in Longform 2025 captures the transformation of a rural landscape under industrialization. A recipient of Elizabeth Greenfield's Foundation Grant 2024, his work merges silence with storytelling. Santanu Debnath. Mr. Moeinuk Sengupta, a storyteller and creative director from Kolkata, Moeinuk brings his experience in advertising and music to his visual work, infusing it with wit, rhythm, and narrative energy. Mr. Moeinuk Sengupta.
Thank you.
Ms. Gargi Bhattacharya, an assistant professor, poet, and translator. Gargi's art reflects her engagement with social activism, children's education, and environmental theme through her NGO, ECOS project. We welcome you, Gargi.
Yes, thank you.
Subhasis Ghosh, a fine artist and filmmaker whose works have been showcased in India and abroad. His visual storytelling blurs the boundaries between painting, cinema, and comics. We welcome you, Subhasis Ghosh. Yeah. Sir, is this your first time to Kolkata CC? Pratyasha Nath, a biotechnology graduate from IIT Kharagpur. Her art merges science, ecology, and social commentary through experimental text and imagery. Pratyasha, we welcome you.
Thank you so much.
Let's welcome all the featured artists of Longform 2025, visionaries who are redefining the art of Indian comics. Together, they will take us on a journey through the art of making comics, showing us how a blank page evolves into a living narrative, how a doodle becomes a story, and how words and images come together to create meaning. KCC is so proud to welcome each one of you today. Thank you so much.
Uh, Thank you. Thank you, Pramilaji, for this wonderful introduction. I know it's a bit misty outside and a bit foggy, but I think everything is clear here. We can see everything very nicely. One important thing before I begin, we are also, from the long form team and also from Penguin, we are giving 3 copies of long form to people who can draw very well. So we are actually, draw anything, 1-page comics on anything that they want to do. So it's, not subject-wise. So as we talk, as we speak, it would be great if somebody also draws. And we have sheets of paper. So I'd actually, ask some of the volunteers if somebody needs a sheet of paper, please make sure that they get a sheet of paper. Okay, so before I begin, let me just tell you that one of the artists, Shan Bhattacharya, is not here. And of course, he got stuck in a very, very, complicated kind of work, and that's why he couldn't be here. But I'm sure that he's there in spirit with us. Now, what I've done is we will just tell you the flow of the program, because I think the flow of the program is very important, and we are doing something different here. So first of all, I will give a general introduction to the long form project and to this book, because a lot of the contributors are from other parts of India and not being able to make, not here. So I'll talk about them a bit. And then I will hand over the mic to my co-editor, Debkumar Mitra, who will actually talk about his mentorship of comics. He's a mentor not only in NID, but also in SEPT and other places, and numerous other places, NIFT and all. So he will take us through his journey of how he mentors people to actually allow them to create comics on their own. And then we are also asking, then after that, these are all 15 minutes each. And after that, we will actually take Argha Manna, our co-editor, again, our newest edition editor in a way. And he will talk about his mentorship program, which he runs at IIT Gandhinagar. And after that, you know, the artists will speak. And we'll start with the youngest one, Pratyasha. And then, of course, we will go the whole round. So let us start. So let me just show you. So this is the long form project. And when it began, it was actually, you know, 4 people. There were 4 people. Debkumar Mitra, who is still there. But the middle 2 you cannot see. Sharbojit Sen and Shekhar Mukherjee. I'm basically the youngest of them, although I don't look young. But I am actually, I'm still probably the youngest of them right away. No, Argha has taken the mantle from me. So very interestingly, we thought of bringing out a magazine which is not a conventional comics magazine. Now we are talking about this word magazine, but it was not supposed to be just like any other magazine. So there were 2 decisions to make. One, we go for regular, weekly, or say a monthly, bi-monthly, that kind of a thing. Or we could have gone for a bigger publication, which is like an annual, which comes out every 2 years or every 3 years. We all thought that, you know, given our busy schedule, it was better to do the next one. So we approached big publication houses so that they can help us in funding the project, because it was very difficult to find funds for young artists. They were willing to give funds to us, but not to young artists, because in that magazine, there will be only young artists. Some of them may be very, very, like, you know, just a beginner. Who will give a chance in Penguin or a Harper? So that was the first question. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. I forgot this. So what happened was, did it start? Did it start? Yeah. No? It just went. It leaped the second slide. No. I had slides in mind. No, I cannot have one slide. Yeah. Okay. So our inspiration was very interesting. Initially, we drew our inspiration from outside. Although, you know, gradually we sort of began to look at Indian equivalents. We didn't find any Indian equivalents. So Debkumar, I remember we talked about Max Sweeney's Quarterly Concern, which is 13. And then we talked about a magazine called Pandora. It was published by the great Castor ma'am. And very interesting to note that Pandora has closed down. We are still alive. So, you know, our inspiration is not there, but we are there, and we will be going far. So next, what happened is, you know, so Sharbojit Sen drew a comics, which is actually about a young person traveling the world. He's lured by a capitalist, and, you know, and he travels everywhere, and then he finds himself at the bottom end of the world. So there was an ideological thrust in the things that we are doing. We just didn't want to do comics for entertainment. We want to do comics which had got this ideological edge to it. And so we try to take comics which has got a bit of that ideological twist. But ultimately it is all about storytelling. And anybody who can tell us good story with or without ideology, whatever, everything had an ideology of its own, is good enough for us. But it should be a damn good story. That's our only criteria. So this is long form 1. And very interestingly, it was published by HarperCollins, the volume 1. It was a big volume, 8 by 10 inches. And you know, the cover art is done by a very talented artist called Moeinuk Bhattacharya, who has become one of the finest animators now in India. So very interestingly, a lot of people who are now big animators or great artists actually made their debut in long form. So this is Upi's first work, and which is very, very interesting to note. And then after this, so this came out in 2018, and there were a lot of praise, both from outside. We got so much press, and I'm not reading them because that's not, important. We were shortlisted for the publishing next, category and all that, and that somehow created a kind of a, a buzz among us that we should continue it, but we should try to better it. We changed, publishing houses because we thought Penguin will give us, a kind of a breadth, a kind of a wider audience. And that is why Longform 2 came out, and that's 2022. We'd be very happy to know that a lot of artists from 2022 are actually now doing storyboards for, great film directors. So Anurag Kashyap was there. Devajyoti did a storyboard for Anurag. So you know that, they somehow matured, but all of them made their debut somewhere in this book. So I always think that this is a very historic book, and, it doesn't matter, whatever you contribute, there will be something in it. You can look at other people's work, which is also inspiring, and you can see that this can go further. So this is volume 2, and then it came out in 2022. There was a COVID year in between, and then we wanted to have a refresh. So Shorbojitda and Shekharda couldn't give us time because they were extremely busy with their own work, and we actually got our new member. Incidentally, his first work, it came out in Longform 2. And then he went on to do bigger things. He went to MIT and all that, Notre Dame. He's, of course, kind of a global superstar now. But Argha was basically a dropout, from PhD. And I keep telling it, which he doesn't like.
No,
but,
like
he actually will be...
Even Dyson didn't have a PhD.
Yeah. So, but there will be a time when people will do PhDs on Argha. So that is probably more satisfying. And so Argha joined us. So now we are 3. So instead of, 4, we are basically 3 people now. So and it's a refreshing change. Argha has actually brought in a lot of great ideas, a kind of a new zing to the entire, enterprise. So this is the, I'm sorry, is this working? Okay, so this is the volume that we have now. And this is 2025, so it has just come out. And we are very happy to know that it's done very, very well. Penguin has informed us that it has done very well. But more than that, more than the commercial aspect, what really gives me satisfaction is the kind of stories that are there. We have moved away from that, complete edgy stuff to storytelling form. So today we don't look for certain things, I think the stories arrive at long form. And we believe in that now. And, and there are brilliant mentors here. There are great artists whom we pick out. And suddenly, some alchemy happens. And we have got this amazing anthology. Because doing anthologies, mind you, is extremely difficult. It's like a management job. And remember, we are there as artists as well. But we cannot put in our own work there. So it's basically management of other artists. So, sometimes you always feel that there is this, provocation to do something yourself. But you also restrain yourself because you are the editor. And you try to be as prudent as you can be. You step a bit back and try to, handhold. Or a lot of people don't need handholding, but a lot of people do need handholding in order to make this a reality. So I will just go through quickly through some of the contributors who are not there, because I'm not going to spend time with people who are here, because they will present their own work. And the very interesting thing is they will present their work from scratch up. How do they conceive the whole thing? How do they make these things happen? Okay, so this is Ananta Shriya, and I think this work is one of the finest in the volume because it talks about something that we really believe in. We also believe in, one thing that we really believe in is also the rigor, artistic rigor. And we don't believe that technology can actually give a solution to that rigor. That rigor is something that is extremely human. And this story, text box, which is very interestingly drawn in digital, is actually about a analog painter, wall painter. And if you look at her work, Ananta Shriya, it's very interesting. It's done in a very interesting way. I'm just giving another, what is happening? Oh, I think. Okay. So if you look at the way, she has used text also to make this very interesting. Sometimes we forget that, comics is also a lot of texts. And the way the texts are done, this is what is happening in the mind of the painter. And the way, that text actually sums up everything makes it very, very interesting. I think this is a leap in storytelling process of comics. In comics, we have conventional speech balloons. We have conventional thought balloons, and that's it. But I think this is a great leap. So Ananta is not here, and we thought of, showing her work. This is a bit slower. What is happening? Yeah, tell me.
So you can just say next
Okay.
slide. So
Yeah. So this is Solitarius by Ananya Bhashyam. And again, you will see she's very young. And you can see that the style changes. It's very, very different. So if you want to go and see Longform, it's actually there, out for sale as well. But if you can just look at the story, these are like short stories. They are not long. They're short stories, but they're able to sort of encapsulate everything that we want from a storyteller. So it's not only about the tale itself, but the way you represent the tale. Okay? And I think that makes it very, very interesting. Grief by Avanti Karmarkar is one of the most lacerating pieces, that is there in the volume. I liked it immensely. And if you look at the work, it is not as if that she is a very accomplished, illustrator. Sometimes, being an accomplished illustrator like, say, Shankha or Shantanu helps, and that definitely helps. But sometimes, even if you are an amateur, but you want to tell a story, I think it is important to give, your thought flow to the page, and that will help you. So this is Avanti's work. And then Aisha Shahul, whose work is the cover, So the cover actually comes from her work. What is very interesting, it is about corporate drudgery. But the way she has represented it is again something that we haven't seen in Indian comics at least. So very, very interesting. So if you can see that, he's basically in a chat meeting, it's kind of a Google Meet or whatever meeting with his boss, with her boss, but she floats away to space. Very, very interesting way of representing the entire thing. And then we have K. Shohini. Shohini actually was from Jadavpur, but now she's settled in New York. And she has done her comics in comics format. And very interestingly, her book has just come out from Penguin Random House, USA. And it has been a really, really great debut for her. She gave a very interesting work, which is basically a kind of a cautionary tale about a kind of an environmental disaster that happened. So if you look at it, Shohini is also very interesting because she is giving a lot of numbers here, okay? A lot of data. And the way that data are being turned into images is also something that we can look at. So comics have never dealt with this kind of thing. So one of the most important things that you can do is basically non-fiction comics, right? That's an area that India hasn't done that much. And then we have the coup of the book, Joe Sacco. Sacco actually gave a wonderful interview, and we must thank Moeinuk Banerjee, who in a way is a dear, dear friend, quite junior to me, but a very good friend. He took one of the finest interviews of Joe Sacco. So if you read this interview, it's not a small interview. It's a long interview, and Sacco himself said that, I haven't given this kind of interview in depth. And he was so gracious that he allowed us to, use any work, any doodle, without going through his agent. Because Sacco is a very big writer. So one day you will know that he will be, he's one of the greatest, comics artist of our times. And he has been so gracious. In fact, the word long form actually comes from Sacco. And Sacco has written back to me and said, if that word has contributed to this volume, I'm really, really shocked. I'm really, really happy. So that's a great thing. And this work by Khushi Chauhan, called My Conversation with God, is also a brilliant work. It's a long tale, but the way she has, drawn the entire thing, this is about belief, testing one's belief. And you will see that it's a brilliant work. And I'll not give away the story because the story is extremely touching. It's one of the most, you can say, most intimate stories in the volume. Very, very touching. What happened? Okay. Validation by Kratika Shunkar. Again, you can easily understand it's about body politics. Fantastic. And look at the way they have drawn it now. The drawing style changes. One of the good things of doing anthologies is the way different drawing styles emerge. Different drawing styles are there across the anthology. City of Missing People is by Priyankar Gupta. Priyankar is going to be one of the biggest comics artists in coming years. This is actually the prologue to a comic book, which is like 280 pages, which I can tell you, guarantee you, will shake up whatever we have done in comics here. I have seen the book, and he was gracious enough to give us what is called, the prologue to that tale. This is about Kolkata. Kali Shohor is Kolkata. And it is about the changing politics of Kolkata without referring to, within quote, directly to the politics of the city. Remembering is by Sid Pyre. And again, you can see, the style is completely different, very, very experimental. Again, a very intimate tale about, confronting one's sexuality. And so we are also going to kind of, breach certain things which are, thought of as sacrosanct in Indian comics. Now we are trying to move a bit forward as well. Feline Wisdom by Snigdha is again, if you can see, it is not as if that, she has drawn it in a very accomplished way. But if you look at the conversation, it's basically a conversation between two cats, and they're so wise, really. They are better than humans, and they are wiser. And it makes it so interesting. So sometimes we are only looking for that kind of what we call that magic. It's not only about drawing. So we don't want it to look beautiful only. Beauty is not the only standard by which we judge stories. People ask, and Debuda and Argha will tell, what is the standard for, what is the main thing, criteria for giving something in long form? It's not about only aesthetic beauty. Aesthetic beauty comes from the storytelling that is already there. And then this amazing guy called Shubhankar Rai Gupta, who has challenged everything that comics is all about. Now, he has actually taken the panel and turned it, so you can call it a meta-comics, comics about comics itself, or comics about the disappearance of panels. And it's brilliant, you have to see this. And lastly, but not least, Vishnu Vasudevan. I haven't seen anybody doing comics like this, So when you talk about the chaos of the bazaar, for example, you remember the Tintin scenes, right? Argha has done it, or, if you see the Ligne Claire style. Or you can see a lot of people doing bazaar, like Arijit Sen doing bazaar. But I haven't seen somebody, just using the type, look at the speech balloons, in order to create that amazing chaos that Indian bazaars are all about. So I personally feel that this is again a leap for Indian comics, something that we are not exactly, that we are not always, acquainted with. So these were the people who are not here. The others are here. So I would not speak about them here. it is always better to hear from them rather than from me in order to speak, and they will speak about their own thing. The one thing that I always tell that, Longform is a very democratic magazine. Anybody can submit to Longform. We don't invite a lot of people. So for this magazine, there are only few invitations, honestly. And of course, we have invited, we've invited Shankha and Shantanu. Except for that, we haven't invited anybody. Anybody can, submit at Longform. But the only thing that we look for is that bit of magic. And we don't know ourselves, what creates that magic, what makes that magic possible. I think it is not possible to judge always. In fact, we may actually have left out stories which could have potential, which can have potential. But we do leave out stories because we cannot accommodate everyone and everybody. But so that's from me. That's what I wanted to talk about. So it's a kind of a basic introduction of what the Longform project is all about. What, where we are heading. We are probably going to have 2 more volumes of Longform very soon. Penguin has been very kind to offer us a kind of a recontract of the Longform. So Pandora has died, but long live Longform. Thank you so much. I will leave it to Debuda to take it from here. You can take the mic. And this one. Yeah. Press. Press. Next. Yeah.
Thank you, Pinaki, and thank you, KCC, for the festival, for having this, and thank you all for coming over.
There was a check if your mic is working.
Misty morning. See, the job of, though we do not talk about it much, the Longform is actually a structure where primarily sourcing stories comes from 2 people on the editorial board, and Pinaki only invites people who he thinks are there. And of course, he manages all these things, because being a designer of his caliber, so Longform is, from the very inception, it has been like that. So I sit on the editorial team primarily to get some stories. Now, the stories are little, they come in all shapes and forms, and mostly from the places where I teach. They are NIDs all across, all over. It could be from Jorhat, it could be from Haryana, it could be from Vijayawada, it could be from Ahmedabad, it could be from SEPT. And haven't tried NIFT as yet, but it could be from there also. Now, why do we trust the stories? Because they're essentially mentored by me, and we know the entire process, from where it started, how the story comes, this and that. Now, while mentoring, I follow a very simple principle, and that's the KISS principle, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That's the principle we followed, and the stories are actually, mostly these courses are 2 weeks, and the longest one is a 4-month course, which I just finished at SEPT, where only the size of the final comic varies. If it is a smaller course, then shorter comics come. So whether it is Anant Shriya, whether it is Aisha, whether it is Ananya, all their stories were born in my class. And the process, the mentoring process is mostly after the stories come to me, we discuss the stories and they just go along and do something. That's what we call first draft, second draft, third draft, which are actually a day affair. I mean, you create something, so 6, 7, 8 pages of comics, that's all they do. But sometimes there are surprises like your Khushi Chauhan, who comes up with a 55-page comic after everything is done. That's the most surprising thing that I get. Now, as far as the styles go, I do not interfere much with the styles, other than where I interfere is if I'm not getting the story is not very being clear. And there are also stories which are now we are becoming a little brave and attempting, which are absolutely abstract forms. How to deal with it. I'll show one example here. Now, there are several what I call little comics games that I play. So I'm just giving you a couple of examples. One is this. It's all my classes starts with, how do you read comics? So you read comics. Sorry. Okay, I can jump this, I think. Yeah. So you read comics, they're given a comic strip. What they do is they analyze everything. And they analyze. Oh, okay. They analyze everything and they create this kind of presentation, and they all present. Mostly these classes have 14, 15 people, and it's about an hour of presentation where they have to present. So that's how it starts. It helps them to get familiar with comic storytelling across the world. And Shankho is sitting here. Shankho's analysis, I must share with him one. I gave one example to them. So they have analyzed it. It could be Arijit Sen. But you cannot touch long form stories. That's the only barrier that they have. They can take stories from anywhere, anything. And then this is obviously, Utpal's story, the man who introduced the Yellow Kid. So this is the kind of things that they do. And then there is a group analysis, which is you form a group. Then other people also contribute and talk about what else is missing in your analysis. And then these stories are created. So it has everything. I mean, you can see it takes things like how panels are divided. I mean, according to them. I do not interfere. These interpretations are absolutely their interpretation. And this is how they study. Now, that is what it is. I guess. Okay. So it becomes a little more complex also, compositional placements. So it's a kind of keep doing it till you have completed the story. So, and then there's the background research, where it has come from. This is who are the people involved, what kind of stuff. Okay. That is the left side of the panel, and Pinaki has kindly added one extra. That is where we are trying to go right now. This is a painting by Raza. And we have converted the entire painting into a 14-page comic. This is one page of that comic. And the person who did it actually did the entire research from where this painting has come, how the critics have seen this painting, and though this particular page looks a little daunting, we may not find too much of meaning out of it, but it develops into a story. Now, that is the first part, that is learning part. Now, how do you do the comics? Each and every person who's doing comics in my class have to interview people, have to go out, meet people, and then do a story. It's not something that you do. Whether you're doing some fantasy, whether you're doing any kind of narrative that you come there, I want to do a kind of Superman story. No, my Superman can, so I will ask them, how long you have been living in America? What do you know about American reality? If you want to do something on, say, manga, so I'll ask about Japanese culture, how much you know about it, what do you know, how do you interpret a particular page. So if you are comfortable with it, you know enough, then only you can do it. That is the restriction, because I have a very, very ulterior motive in my mind that some of these stories might just creep into long form, and I do not want someone to create a story. And I mean, between Pinaki and Argha, the kind of stories that we have seen, the clutch stories, it is very, very difficult at times to find out which is the story that we're going to select, because we have got limited space. And if we reject, say, 10, 15 stories, which are uninvited, sort of, from mentoring and other things that come, I mean, it's not because then they cannot be on long form. It's just because we cannot give them any space. So we are trying to figure out a way so that these stories also reach to a wider audience. Otherwise, what's happening is people are getting a little more dejected, disappointed. Though they're going to, say, Indie Comic Fest and all, I'm encouraging them to go with their comics, print a few copies, 10, 15 copies, see people if there are takers for them. And I just did it with the Sept people in Ahmedabad. They went to Ahmedabad Indie Comics Fest, and they sold out the entire lot. And they reprinted again for the second day, and they sold out again. So that's very encouraging that comics is becoming. So when I started this mentoring process, that's almost 10, 12 years ago, there were hardly any takers for comics. Now, that is because the unlearning process have just started. I mean, that reminds me of a Bengali song which I heard when it's a parody sort of song which I heard when I was in college. There was a group from, I think, either their mixed group from Scottish Church and B College. They came to Jadavpur University where I was a student. They sang this song which they called, the paper called Chikungunya. So the lyrics went, the first two lines were, it's a new newspaper, Chikungunya, Chikungunya. Less of news, more of paper, Chikungunya, Chikungunya. So in that, the couple of lines that stuck me is how comics is seen in India. They say, comics eo, sex thakbe, dekhe choto choto chanara pakbe. So you understand the matured comics here would immediately guide people to AXA, Modesty Blaze, though the comics themselves must be talking about something else. It's just that kind of an interpretation which make this product in India is seen as a juvenile entertainment product. Hence, there is so much of resistance against very, very, fantastic work. And the current situation as far as comics go, if you look at how comic sales are going, where graphic novels sales are going, it is growing internationally. I'm not talking about India, at the rate of 22% year on year, where the book sales are growing at the rate of 4.8% year on year. Now, the thing is, all these statistics are based on, everything is from abroad. America, be it France, be it Japan, be it Spain, all these places are, the run is fantastic. Even in Singapore, the sales have gone up Taiwan, the new people are coming up, and also that the webtoons that these people, they're very good at marketing, the South Koreans, and it's changing. And in India, the adult matured reading people, matured comics reading people, that population has increased. But unfortunately, what appeals to them is still kind of a Amar Chitrakatha thing. I mean, if you want to be, if you want to do some comics which are a little more edgy, they seem to, and the publishers obviously they go with the people, and hence those comics unfortunately we have to take down. We have to think about it. Pinaki and I are editing an anthology of Manto's stories in adaptation, and we had this constant fear of how much we can show and what we can hold. Now you can play around with visual metaphors, but you can't just keep on doing things like that. So much for the mentoring and this part. The long form journey for us has been an exhilarating journey, through debates, through fights, through whatever we have. The idea was to create a platform on which anyone can come and tell a story if the story is good. And the story has happened. And I believe that at some point of time, which Pinaki and I had a discussion, that the people whose stories are not usually seen, those invisible people will get a space in galleries to show their comics. And that is the only way we can promote comics. And our jobs as long form, we during our formative years, we discussed it threadbare that we are not going to shift from the focus there. The stories have some kind of a different meaning than the stories themselves as they are. Also that we need to create a space for these people who want to tell a story and they don't get a space. Thank you very much. And we are also thankful to Penguin for giving us this space, and all my publishers, and KCC, thank you again for allowing us to have this session. Thank you.
Are you okay? Next slide. Yeah, one. Yes. Yeah. Now what? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Debuda. And I'm not going to tell you about much detail about comics itself and comics teaching. So my name is Argha and I work at IIT Gandhinagar. Of course, IIT is a science and engineering institute. It is very hard to teach comics there, of course. You can understand again why. So I work there in a humanities and social science department, and I'm trying to create one kind of a comics ecosystem there. So it's not only about teaching, because I cannot tell much about teaching because I am also learning comics. I am a practicing comics artist. I came from a science background, so I think that I do not know much comics. But my idea was to create an ecosystem, and I'll show you some slides on that. So this guy is our mascot in IIT Gandhinagar's comic scene. So they are the grass cutters. So in every year, we organize one Comic Con at IIT Gandhinagar, which is kind of a first Comic Con in any IIT. So we created that, we curated that, and every year we change the mascot, mostly based on who run the IITs or any other institutes. It's not the professor or the scientist, rather who are the daily workers, who cut grasses, who are the sweepers, cleaners. So every year the mascot got changed. And they are our superheroes. So this was our Comics Conclave 2, when the second version's mascot. And if you ever go to IIT Gandhinagar, you can see this scene. These birds are there and they're cutting grass. So I wanted to introduce with our mascot first, and this is the ecosystem actually I was talking about. So again, this is IIT Gandhinagar in our campus, and it's possible if you visit there, it's possible again, or if you can imagine enough, perhaps you can see that kind of splash. Someone is flying away, someone is moving around in this way with the cape, red cape. It's possible again, if you close your eyes or if you wide open your eyes. But whatever, so this is the ecosystem. So I thought when I joined, first of all, that usually in any anthology, what I saw, all other volumes of Longform and any other anthologies, mostly the art and design students usually get chances, because they are good, of course. Like they think like an artist, they are quite exposed to different kind of visual storytelling. But comics, like what we promote about comics, like first of all, anyone can draw comics because you really do not need to draw like Michelangelo, right? So if anyone, why only art college and design college students, if anyone can do that? But again, it's a craft. You need to learn the skill. And I didn't know this, I didn't have the skill and I was still learning. So I thought, let's create some sort of a ecosystem where I can learn along with students. So that was my plan. So these are the part of the plan. One is dedicated comics course. So in any institute, if you really want to promote some sort of an education, you need a course. So I do not like a course kind of course, but you need to convince the authorities as well. Like what you are going to do, I want to organize one comic con, no, it's rejected, right? So if you know, I'm teaching, there is a course, 60 people can register in that. Okay, now they are convinced, okay, now we can do that. Then slowly, okay, since I'm teaching 60 people every semester, so can we create one event? What kind of event? Like kind of a Comic-Con? So what will happen there? People will roam around with different kind of dresses like Batman and Superman? No. It's a very academic kind of Comic-Con because the academic institute, we need to bridge the gap. Then, of course, authority will say, okay, yes, true. Course and then the event, right? Then, as Devuda told you, everyone cannot get published because everyone is equally talented, but we need to show their work to people, right? So can we make one sort of a room, kind of a gallery, where we can display their work? Is it possible? Okay, it's possible because students need to display their work, and comics we cannot judge like exam sheets. So can we get a room where actually students can showcase their assignments? Yes, you can, true. So again, one step further, and then definitely students need to learn drawing. Comics is a visual medium. Of course, we tell that you really do not need to be good at drawing or something. If you are not good at all, then you can write. You have to have some sort of a drawing sense and you have to have some sort of a practice. Then we thought, they are science and engineering students. They have lots of assignments and they are taking my course. They want to exhibit their work. So let's create one sketch club. So that every weekend, they can go with me outside the campus. Our campus is very beautiful, you can see that. It's all our natures, nilgais are roaming around, and also lots of hilly regions, so it's a beautiful campus. And we can go there and we can practice sketches. We have very good canteens, we can go there and we can draw peoples. In hostel room, they can draw each other. In this way, we created one sketch club. So now everything is connected here. You can see that, and this was the idea. So one course, if I am floating a course or learning the comics along with the students, we need to celebrate that. So we need one event. To celebrate the event, we need some sort of space, right? So we need a gallery, and to make all this thing happen, we need to learn drawing, the actual craft. So we created a club. So this is the ecosystem. So this ecosystem, the outcome of the ecosystem is, I'm going to show you. That is the IIT Gandhinagar Comic Con. This is our comic scene. And these are connected with course, students' works. They are getting published in long form. Four of my students actually, and including Pratyasha. Pratyasha is from IIT Kharagpur. So she also came to work with me in IIT Gandhinagar. And they are getting published. So this is the outcome we are looking for. So I'm just showing you some examples, what actually we're trying to do. And in my opinion, how in an institute or outside institute, whatever, this ecosystem, this model of ecosystem can promote comics. Only teaching it's not sufficient. Only inviting good artists, definitely not sufficient. Only having a gallery, not sufficient. We need to have a network. So these are the part of the networks. So this is one poster from students' work. Every semester, they have to show their work publicly in a comic zine exhibition. They would also do that in NID and other institutes where they would work as visiting professor. So we invite entire community, not only the professors, entire community, invite to see the exhibit. They have to take the printouts, and again, I convinced the authority to get the budget for their printouts and all. And this is kind of a small room we could acquire. So this is the poster. The students are basically arranging their zines. They have to make a book in every semester. These are the activities, what we're trying to do there. So this is a poster. Again, you can see our mascot is here. And Spiegelman's mouse is also there. Spiegelman himself, right? In the avatar of mouse. Why we did that? Because actually we wrote to Spiegelman so that during the third version of Comic Conclave, so just his documentary film was released in New York. So we wrote to them, can we showcase that here? And we do not have money. And again, my logic was same. Look, this is an engineering and science institute. We do not have money to showcase your comics film. So can it be free? He said yes. And in first time in India, we showcased that film. And this is the exhibition. In this exhibition, you can see the names, So they are the best comics artists in India. Like here is Vishwajyoti Ghosh, Sankha Banerjee was there, Anupam Rai, Devuda was there, Pinaki was there. We invited them. So this exhibition is for the practicing comics artist and comics scholar. Along with them, students can exhibit their work. So that they are also getting that sense that, okay, equally we can take part in an exhibition along with the, the big shots, so-called big shots, right? So these are the three posters which actually can show you that what kind of activities we usually plan during that Comic Con. And these are small moments, like we always organize some sort of a floating bookstores kind of thing. Who are coming as a guest, we contact with the publishers that their books should be there so that people, comics artists are not rich, very rich. Books should get sold, right? So in IIT, there are lots of students, around 5,000, community members are 3,000. Definitely they can, the authors and writers and the publisher can earn something from that. That's why the bookstores. These are the lecture. Pinaki himself is here in the picture. This is Pinaki actually. He was talking about Ray's visual storytelling. And here the other delegates, you can see Amrita Patil's posters carry. So that means during that, so she's not in the picture, but Amrita Patil was the guest. And this is Milia Sharma. Milia Sharma is the Penguin India's head. And we invite publishers so that, again, inviting publisher is very important decision because with the young artists, they are working so that they directly can talk with the publishers if the publishers are interested in their work or not. So this was part of building the ecosystem. We invited artists also. Though this is a Comic Con and part of my course, but inviting artists, fine artists, is very important because when we are doing comics, we only cannot learn from comics itself, right? We should learn from music, we should learn from other visual storytelling, we should learn from writers and other peoples, common peoples who have nothing to do with art, right? So this was kind of my attempt to create this kind of a consortium. And in every Comic Con, there are workshops where community members can come, participants can come, and we give them free hand to, so create something on a long scroll. And this is part of the exhibition we organized. We have exhibition hall there, very small though, but at least we have a hall. So this is Sharbojit Da, this is Shekhar Da, and at the background, this is some artworks by Sharbojit Da and Joshi Benedict's artwork. He's a brilliant comics artist from Kerala. So you can see the exhibition hall, and this is from workshop done by Sharbojit Da. So in the middle, this is Avanti actually, just Pinaki showed her work. Yeah, that's it. So there's a couple of slides. So my point is, what I'm trying to do is, since I am learning comics, so I wanted to build an ecosystem from myself, so that student and me, both party, there's kind of a win-win situation we can have. Together we can learn, and we can make it sustainable, just not just teaching or just drawing or something, so that we together we can grow, we can get published. So that was the idea, and the outcome is, as I told you, you can see also in the book, 5 people already got selected in Longform. Other people's, though they are science and engineering students, they are using visual storytelling in their own research, own PhD. It's helping in creating figures in their research papers and in any other way. Visual thinking is not for just, you have to be published as a comics artist. Comics is a way of visual thinking, but actually you can have in your life as well. So it's not necessary that you have to publish. Rather, it's a very, kind of a practicing art itself is a very good way to live life. So this is kind of thing we want to give to our students and other students, because in this comic con we invite students and faculties from all over the India, so anyone can join, and we host them. So that's it. So I do not have much thing to tell about comics itself, but only the network. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. Pratyasha? Yes. Can we have Pratyasha? Yeah, your work will be there. Four.
Good afternoon, everyone. My comic is called Earworm, and it was included in this year's Longform, which is why we are here. And I'm going to tell you the shocking truth about how I made Earworm, or how I did not make it. I mean, I started it, but let's just say that it was completed not by me, not by any other human, but actually a fungus. So, it all started in the summer of 2023. I was at a very bad stage in my life at that time, because I had applied to so many research programs. I was initially a student of biotechnology and biochemical engineering. So those were the kind of research programs that I was applying to, and I got rejected in each and every one application that I made. And I thought that that was the end of the world for me, but I got lucky. First I met Pedro, online. He is actually a mycologist and a biotechnologist. So Professor Pedro Gonzalez, he kind of took me under his wings. I was supposed to go to Taiwan, but I did not have enough money. So what we did was we started corresponding, and I was doing a review on medicinal fungi. And he really made me so passionate about mushrooms in general. Midway through writing that paper, I thought that this is so niche. Who is going to read this paper? Only other people who already know about it. But people who do not know about it also need to learn about mushrooms and fungi. And a good way to do that would be to make something visual, something pretty to look at. And I was not yet ingrained with the idea of comics. I just thought that, okay, we could make a zine. And I reached out to all the science artists in India. I emailed them, I wrote them messages on LinkedIn, and Argha sir was the one who replied. And I thought, okay, this could be the start of something. And he told me that I could come to IIT Gandhinagar. That is where I went, and the journey started for me. I found a mentor in a million. He gave me these books to read. You can see Mouse, Meta Mouse, and Watchmen. These were the very first books that he gave me to introduce me to the language of comics, because growing up I had only read books with text in them and not a lot of pictures, and I used to think that comics are for less intelligent people. How naive. But when I read these books, I realized how intelligent the medium is and how powerful it could be. And he encouraged me to start thinking of a way to turn my idea of zines into comics instead. He also told me to watch this Netflix series called Abstract. I would encourage you to go through it as well, because it shows the thinking process of artists from who practice different mediums. So these were one of my starting notes, and as you can see, it doesn't look anything like comics at this point. I was just thinking of ways in which I could put ideas into more than text forms. Even my first scribbles were in this notebook that I borrowed from Sir. And finally, these scribbles turned into nicer sketches. Earworm was not always called Earworm. Trying to bring that back. Yeah. So initially, I thought that I would call it a ball of yarn, because the story had a lot of threads in it. And these were the first 2 pages that I made. If you read Longform, if you read Earworm in it, you will find these pages. And I am going to tell you a little bit about how I came up with these. Of course, you will find them in colored form. This page here talks about parasites, the one on the left. And I thought that the word parasite, first of all, would bring to mind the movie Parasite, which talks about the entire concept of parasitism in a social way. And then I connected that with how in the USSR, certain people were seen as parasites to the society. And I tried to tie that back into how I have learned about parasitism in the life sciences. When we talk about the social context, the word parasite is a very negative concept. But that might not be so, because parasites have their own place in the ecosystem, and we are no one to really pass moral judgments on it. And I thought that in my page I could just bring that out. Anyways, and the second page also has a personal connection to it. So my parents are here, and my mother is very fond of knitting. And I thought that the way in which ecosystems are formed are very reminiscent of how bit by bit she makes a sweater. And it is so easy to pull the thread apart. It takes only a minute or so to turn a sweater into a ball of yarn again. But making something, constructing the fabric, takes so much more time. And I could connect that with how I thought that nature took such a long time to be created, but it is degrading at a way more faster rate. Next, I would like to talk about a more technical aspect, because there are a lot of images and references that I was taking when making my pages. And for that, I made mood boards where, for instance, I took some scenes from Parasite the movie. And for that, obviously, I didn't really want to take it the same way. I wanted to do my own interpretation of it. And I just aligned the frames in certain ways to create an image of my own. And I also had some other image references, sometimes to understand and sometimes to directly take inspiration from. I did my entire lettering by hand. So for a lot of the artists, you would see that the artwork is maybe made traditionally, but I did all my lettering by hand because I still did not know how to do it digitally. But hand lettering can be tricky too. I had thoughts like this. This is like directly from my notebooks, where I thought if I should do a mix of upper and lowercase, or I should stick to uppercase. But then I thought that if I write it in all caps, it would look like I'm shouting. But finally, I settled on that. And you can see it is really untidy, so I also practiced handwriting to improve it so that the hand lettering looks way more presentable. I also made this accordion book. This was actually Sir's idea. He told me that since I was not acquainted with making comics, the first way I should do it is through painting, because that is a way of expressing visually that I am more comfortable with. And from those, I took some ideas and started drawing more pages. These were some other pages where I referenced my previous work. On the left, you can see that I drew it directly, so it's not, it's a very direct reference. And in the other one, I thought that I could change the shape of the panel itself to make it look like the accordion book. So these ideas that I had during my first draft phase came very handy when I hit a creative block. I hit another creative block. And then what I did was, I thought of doing it in 15 to 16 pages. So I just wrote in short what are the ideas that I want in each page. And I also colored it in this way for me to understand what each page meant to me. So the colors of the pages, they are not really the color schemes. It's more about what is the mood of the page. And that was very helpful because I was also going through a lot of different ideas. Like I was talking about multi-species justice, and I was also talking about very technical aspects like some conservation laws, or I mean, that was what was on the plate to begin with, and different species as well, like some rare species. I mentioned Ophiocordyceps. So that required me to think of how I could put in a lot in an organized way without making it look cluttered.
I think some sort of loose collection.
Okay, that is okay. And then I made more sketches, but so I'm young and I really speak a very contemporary language, and the story was not storying the way I wanted it to. So what I had to do was, can we go to the next slide, please? The next.
Yeah, do it manually.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. While I was in the midst of these things, I went deaf in 1 year because I got an ear infection. This was still the summer. I was back from IIT Gandhinagar. I was at home, and the image that you see there, which could be kind of gross to some people, was what came out of my ear, the fungal mass. And well, at that time, I had a lot on my plate, and I could also not listen, and that did not really put me in a good state. But you know what? Going deaf actually gave me an idea that this could be the turning point of the story. I changed everything. I thought that, like, I had just saved up some money, and I had got the Spotify premium subscription. And when I went deaf in 1 year, I was thinking that, oh no, what is the use of it? And that later became the starting hook of my story. I made this playlist called Despite Repeated Warnings, which had songs which have a lot of references to climate change and environmental issues. I am very fond of rock music, metal, heavy metal, death metal, new metal. I love all of that. Part of the reason could be that when I went deaf in 1 year, this kind of loud music was the only thing that got through to me. And I drew inspiration from that. On some of the pages, you will see that I have put these banners at the top and they have text written on it. Actually, they are lyrics of songs that have some message. For instance, on one of the starting pages, I start with Paul McCartney's Despite Repeated Warnings. And I also thought, like, when I was working, my parents know how unorganized it was, and I had trash lying all around. And on one of them, I was just doodling, and that is the actual sheet of paper that was there, which also found a place in one of my pages. Finally, after all of these things that happened in the summer of 2023, by September 2024, I finished Yearworm. It was my first comic. It should not have taken so much time, but it was a big learning process for me. And this cover page was the one that I painted in the very end. And I also had a chance to showcase the finished works at IIT Gandhinagar, for which I am very thankful. And what's next for me? I recently, along with Genia ma'am, who was my professor until very recently, I mean, she still is, together we are writing a book. It is a graphic novel, not a novel, but a series of graphic stories where we will be applying the more than human lens. So in a way, it is a more mature take on whatever I talked about in Yearworm as a much younger person. Now I have read a bit more, and I have some more ideas, and we will work on that, and it will be called Fables for the Anthropocene. For writing this book, we have received the very prestigious FAST India Science Book Fellowship, so that is the way forward. And thank you so much. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Maybe we'll take the questions later. Right here. Can we do a skip? And the number bolo?
Seven, I think we are seven.
Seven. Yeah. Seven. Yeah. So, is it alive? Okay.
Hi, so I'm Dr. Gargi Bhattacharya. I'm also unfortunately a professor, so there are a lot of academics speaking here today. I think people are under the impression that these days only academics make comics or graphic stories or narratives, whatever you call them. And we sort of have, monopolized this thing. And we haven't. That's basically the deal. Because all of us are kind of like accidental graphic artists. And I think my, collaboration with Shan and Subhasis, the Subhasis is thankfully here. Shan is the visualizer who's always kind of the absent presence. And he's off, on some, errand. I think it technically proves the point because one of us were not enough to do the story. Two of us were not enough to do the story. We needed three people. And we introduced a category called the visualizer for people who don't understand what it means. We don't understand it either. So when I thought, the protagonist of the story is also fortunately sitting with me in this room. It is my daughter. So the entire story revolves around maternal anxiety. The story began when I had a pregnancy scare, and I completed it when I actually spent, a whole 9 months with a baby in utero and, trying to prepare my mind for something that it was not ready for. So I think the introduction, the genesis of Genesis is, as a graphic story, it kind of just goes into the depths of maternal dread. I think more and more women are now coming out and speaking about one of the most, defining experiences of their lives. And it doesn't get talked about, at least in India, where there is, this Mother India narrative, and wholly, it kind of subsumes your role in society. You're supposed to be the good mom, you're always supposed to, even before the baby arrives, you're supposed to love the baby. You're not supposed to be anxious, you're supposed to be happy. And my preparation for this entire period was exactly the opposite. I was a journalist back then. I had not returned to academics. And my initial years in academics and while working in UN, it was completely spent traveling. And this is the first time in my life, in probably 7, 8 odd years, that I was static. I was not traveling anywhere much. In the first trimester, I did not know that I was pregnant. I was still very active. I was hiking. I was doing all sorts of things that people are not supposed to do while they're pregnant, because there was no baby in the picture, at least in my head. So the first USG that revealed a hand, I really wish I put that hand here. That was very graphic in my head. And that planted this seed. So you see these, these really small bubbles. A baby is basically a bubble. I think all women who have, undergone some kind of experience can tell you that one of this most common experiences in women who are progressing in pregnancy is that they have this experience that they have multiple bubbles inside them which are continuously bursting, or they're trying to come up. So when we were talking about this, one of my best friends, Shan Bhattacharya, who's the visualizer of the story, I was talking about this to Shan, and Shan is a medical doctor by profession. So here was a writer who could not explain the story to the artist, because the artist has no babies. It does not intend to have babies, and cannot be explained the intricacies of pregnancy or childbirth by another person who cannot explain it to them in visual terms. And then I explained it to my friend who's a doctor, and he explained it to him. So I was very glad that the circumstances of its inception was so fraught that I had images of it in my mind, and I wanted to tell this story of maternity as personal and political, because to have a baby these days is not just having a baby. It is having the responsibility of a human being who's going to populate the planet, obviously play its part in destroying the planet, and obviously, it's one more person. And obviously the first thing I used to think is that I'm kind of an extreme person where imagination is concerned. So I would obviously think of the worst people I have known in my life. And obviously it would, I would always think that their moms didn't know, that they're going to be, dhatti pe boj. What can I do to avoid this? And then this maternal anxiety about the child and what the child is going to become is also riddled with social anxiety of what our society is becoming. Because when a child is born, you offer the child to the world, but you're also at the same time offering the world to the child. And unfortunately, that's where most of my anxiety was. As a person, I'm not a very anxious person, but I have tremendous social anxiety. I kind of stopped watching the news. I moved away from media. I am extremely fraught with anxiety about what is happening to our society right now, even as we speak, and how difficult it is in a world full of media, full of screens, to have a child being raised in the way you thought you were capable of raising a child, or you visualized raising a child. So this is where I think visual translation kind of helps. It articulates better when there is a go-between, a translator between the writer and the artist, I feel like, because it's more immersive. Because he was a doctor, he could really explain the hormonal connections, why I was feeling so anxious, what is maternal anxiety, what happens to our bodies. And this is an extremely important thing, what happens to the bodies. These are our visualizer's notes. So this is all his handwriting. So he's kind of explaining the concept of, I was feeling so fractured at that point of time. And Shan could explain to, Subhasis this very successfully, I hope. Nowhere you will see, if you see Genesis or if you read Genesis, go through it, then nowhere does the woman's body get represented in its entire form. We only see like kind of body parts and hazed out. The strokes are extremely jarring because women have kind of this dysmorphic disorder when their bodies are changing. When you look in the mirror, you don't really understand that it's your body. It's somebody else staring at you. You gain an enormous amount of weight. Your body is going to balloon up. You don't fit in your old clothes. The mirror is showing you something else. It's not just a lateral inversion. In the mirror, you can also see the futuristic inversion your life is about to see, because as a mother, you are no longer one person. You're not responsible just for yourself. The entire weight of the child, a child born in the post-Holocaust, the post-apocalyptic universe, post-atomic bomb universe, is kind of representation of everything that you dread about the world. So I think that, that kind of, dread of creating a new monster, the dread of creating an unknown, inchoate body, and what shape that body is going to take, kind of subsumes your, narrative. So thankfully, I have, an artist who used to send me sketches, and as I said, that you never see the woman's body. See in typical Lignac-Clear order, or it's not an organized body. It's an incomplete body because the body inside it is also incomplete. So the artistic techniques, he's sitting right here, but unfortunately he's quite sick. So he can't speak for himself, so I'm going to do the speaking for him. Do you want to say like a few lines? But no, I wanted you to speak on the materials.
The thing is, what we have done it as it's a very complex themes of thinking. So I have used the 3 or 4 kinds of materials: ink, pen, ink, oil pastels, and watercolor. So what we have done, the medium actually used it as in different kind of cases. In the each and other pages, you will see what kind of effects are actually coming out in that panels. So that is the most implicated thing, I think, that I have to speak out, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Subhasis. He's very modest, but he did work very hard on this because we were like, okay, we were going back and forth a lot. Especially we wanted strokes which looked very surreal. We never wanted any kind of realism. Because dread is not, my entire reason was that dread or anxiety is not a very realistic emotion. You cannot define it, there are no contours, you can't really see yourself, you cannot see your mind breathe rationally, think, pause, nothing. It is very, very all-consuming. So we wanted this theme of dystopic, all-consuming dread, anxiety to envelop the entire, canvas. And I think his use of colors really complemented that. I wanted this bomb, going off. It's kind of, I looked like at the child as a biological weapon. It can be weaponized because it's already weaponized against your body. It will do unspeakable things to your body, of course. And then obviously the child that comes into the world has potential for both good and evil. So that I wanted represented here. Not much else. I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about the visual appeal, but everybody can see the visual appeal. So I think I've already talked about how it's never, it's organized around things which are tremulous and apprehensive and never really whole. We didn't want any wholeness. Although when you really think about a child, what you want to visualize as wholeness, people look for 10 fingers, 10 toes, everything intact, the child can hear, there is an Apgar score that a child is given after birth to see whether everything's in working order, and that moment defines the moment of anxiety for a parent. So, but I wanted to move away from that, and I wanted to have that colossal weight of parenthood being shown in, incomplete ways, and I wanted to build an incomplete narrative. So the narrative technique, I guess, is, it's just basically crafted to build a lot of tension, because it is a time for a person with which is full of foreboding, in a sense. Employs dialogues, basically internal monologues, reveals the protagonist's thoughts and fears. And visuals and text create a richer storytelling experience. Obviously, we wanted a very immersive kind of, paneling, which I think we got. So I guess I'm just, summing up now, and I'm showing you the sketches. I think the critical analysis from the graphic story was, the feedback that we got was pretty good, so we were happy. I want to expand it into something of a, full-length work, but let's see, we don't know the future. Collaboration is great. I think what I learned from this exercise, I've always been, solitary worker, as most academics are. But when you're in a classroom for years, when you're speaking to students, teachers, other people, you're interacting with the product of your own imagination, which is your own child. And every day, your ideas take shape. You realize that it's always better if you have other people to collaborate with, because these ideas shouldn't stay static. They should move in between people, because it enriches them. This story would not at all be complete. When I wrote it, it was like a paragraph. And because it was just a paragraph, but it had the seed of something, like a child itself, which is like a fetus, without the artwork and the visual elements, it would not be incomplete. It would not be complete. It would be completely useless as a 2-paragraph narrative over what I wanted the world to see of maternity or maternal dread, right? So thanks a lot. I hope I haven't taken much time. Yeah, so that's my last slide. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Moeinuk.
Pinaki, yeah. She's calling you.
Yeah.
Fine. Hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. So this is a story about how this story came into being, and so basically it's not just one story. Everything that has been about me from the beginning has all culminated into the story. Before I come to this, I'll just have a small prologue. So when I was a 9-year-old, I wanted to be everything. I wanted to be Roy of Rovers. I wanted to be Bruce Lee. I wanted to be Mitunda. And I also wanted to be a Superman with Mahatarango machine. I don't know what that was, but it was definitely something for a 9-year-old. But in the process, everything got mixed up. And Spider-Man kind of, what happened? Yeah, Spider-Man punched Maradona and I became a commercial writer, which is to say, writing pays my bills. I started my career writing feature stories as a journalist for Times of India here in Calcutta. That was a very small stint, 2 years, after which I moved to advertising. And I became a copywriter. Now the thing about being a copywriter is you do everything other than writing. You're playing multiple roles. Sometimes you're a director, sometimes you're a radio jockey, sometimes you're a marketeer, and you fill word files to support the role that you're doing. And in this process, somewhere, I found myself being a sequential artist, doing stuff, and that's mainly in my own corner. not much collaboration or partnership with anyone. So it came about, and it came about. Why I'm telling you this is because this is how my mind works. I look for stories around us, around our lives, and then once I find a story, I'm basically, the journalist in me is a very nosy Parker. I chat up with all sorts of people, try to sniff out anomalies. And it's always anomalies that make for new stories. Like this particular story, long form in the Borderliners, this came to me when we used to live in Gurgaon. There's this quaint little society in Sector 56 called Devinder Bihar. We used to stay there. And my usual habit of talking with various kinds of people ended up, it was a travel. I was on an office trip to Jaipur, and I was chatting with the driver. And after a point in time, I realized that he hides his minority identity to find employment in a place like a national capital region of a, whatever, rising global economy, whatever we call it. That really hit me. I said, and I started probing. And what I realized was there is a constant fear of being found out, of being ostracized, of being left without any means of finding or of earning their livelihoods. This hit me. What more than, okay, we have all heard about extremism, we have heard about riots, but it doesn't happen to us, right? It happens in the news. But in this conversation, I was almost living that. And I realized that all this, our urban civility is like sitting on a powder keg. This undercurrent is always there, no matter how much we talk about. And this, I am talking of 2009. This India existed much, much before and will exist much, much after. This is what we are. And I had to tell this story. And I didn't know how, what form it will take. Life went on. And then one fine day, I had this epiphany of an opening shot. What if it is an out-of-focus barbed wires, and the camera comes to focus and you realize it's a clothing line with clips? I thought this will be a brilliant opening to a short story on this theme. And I sat down to write a short story. So basically, the ad man does is procrastinates without a deadline. So this was not commissioned by any client. So the story was there. It took me almost 6 years to write this script. From 2009, my Google Drive says that my first file was uploaded on 2015. So that's 6 years. And I wrote it as a short film first, initially, and then finally spoke with a lot of friendly directors. Finally, it came down to who is going to pay for the shoot and whatever production. So it never happened. And then sometime in 2000, just before, I think 2019, I was introduced to Debkumar Mitra, where I can't see him, he's here. And I narrated the story to him, and he said, Koro, do it for long form. I said, okay. So the sequential artist had to get to work, which means draw a lot, edit a lot, because I've written a film, now I'm doing a graphic novel. And repeat that process till it looks like a graphic novel. So here are some, so the biggest challenge was how do you translate a film thinking into a graphic novel? It's completely different. Film is the finished product, a storyboard is a step to the finished product, but a graphic novel is the finished product itself. So it had to make sense there. So when now I had lived with this story for a long time. I didn't need a script to start drawing. What you see here is a later stage of my initial drawings where I have inked it and then I scanned them for final digital finish. So what I did was I just tried to break it up into panels and see if the story was making sense in a graphic novel format. These are some initial sketches going. এখানে করতে হবে? Okay. আচ্ছা ল্যাপটপের কাছে থাকতে হবে, ঠিক আছে, that's হ্যাঁ আমি এখান থেকে করছি, that's I think that will be better. ও আপনার হ্যাং করে গেছে বা কিছু, জাস্ট এসকেপ করে দেন, I think হ্যাং করে গেছে. Yeah, just let's do that. So let's see it like this. Thank you, Pinaki. So these are some initial sketches how I was exploring them. But this is not the final form. It will finally take shape as we move on. I'll show you some stages. And then I was thinking about color. Growing up in Calcutta as a Bengali boy and in a Shakto family, which is like worshippers of Kali. Red has been the color of system for me. You'll see, we have seen that red in Makali, we have seen that red in blood. I've seen it in the teep my mother word. I've seen it in posters all around. Calcutta was a red city then. So red for me was the color of the system. So I decided this border, living between borders, I'll just use white and black, look at two extremes, and put the system, express the system through red. And Pinaki, if you can just, oh, take it. They'll need a reboot. Yeah. No, I can. No, it's all right. It's all right. Yeah. So, black, white, the two extremes, majority, minority, and the system that monitors it from above. It is the system that plays the minority and the majority game. The people do not. And it's the system that is represented through red. And the rest of the multitude is living either a black life or a white life. It depends really on which side of the line you are. The moment you switch the side, the other side looks black. It's happening now? Yeah. So, মা কালী, মায়ের মাথায় টিপ, লাল শহর, লাল বই. Red was not revolution for me when I was growing up. Red was a system that I had to revolt against, which is not to give a color to my identity, but it was a system to me. I was born in 77. It was already a system. I haven't seen. From those initial sketches, things started progressing. When I approach it, see, I do it in multiple stages. First, I would try to lay down the entire groundwork in one go and see if the panels are making sense. Then I'll try to individually look at each panel and see how can I make them better, or how can the, add. So this this is the first draft, second draft, and this is how the characters look finally. Even my panel designs, they progress through stages from initial draft to a second draft and to the final expression. I always think that what is, it's like editing. After you have put the entire thing there, how do you arrive at the final stage? The biggest challenge was the cover, the opening shot of out of focus camera to a focus. How do you bring that alive in a print static medium? I don't know whether I'm successful, but that was the biggest challenge in my mind. I tried various things. I knew that it has to look something like this, but I was not satisfied. Then finally, it came to like something like this. The impact was much, much more. So I thought that now, as a visual, I have captured the duality. And it's almost, if you look at the border, between the second and the third, there's a subtle change. It is in the third, the border is becoming the hand. The border has come alive, which is not there in the second. I'm still experimenting. And that is where I find that, okay, I've reached somewhere. But then, still something was missing. Just putting the name borderliners doesn't seem enough. I needed something more to anchor the thought in the opening scene. In case of a film, the opening scene sets the mood. Here it's an opening scene, but I needed to anchor this. That is where through some research, that, I came across a story about Chitmohol in Bengal, if you have heard of that. And the mythology goes that two kings of North Bengal and Assam, they played chess and staked pieces of land at random. And after the game ended in a drunken stupor, both the kings falling asleep, everyone woke up next day. They were aliens in their own land. So I thought that makes a great opening. So I created this piece of writing that that presents the entire theme of borderliners. Now, I have been also, despite being a writer, I always try to look at my writing, how it comes alive visually, because whenever someone reads, other than a book, the moment it's in design, you do not read words, you see the words, just like you see visuals. So when I'm writing, I'm also conscious about how long the sentence is, where I'm doing the line break. Can I create a sense of pause with a line break? Can I do a paragraph break? How do I introduce the killer penny drop moment? Does this line break look odd? Then I have to rewrite again. So that is how I approach it. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes it's just like that. This is one section which was very challenging and very interesting. In the film that I wrote, I wanted a montage sequence where the tension was building. So in a news reports, we get the news flash is saying stories of riot, and there's this maid servant who wants to go home early. There's a storm coming. There's this grandmother who is in the puja room, and there's this kid sleeping, and the mother who has just come in. I wanted to create a montage of quick cuts of sequences, and with audio-wise, I was thinking if I could do a intercut between chanting of Lokhir Pachali with news flash, with kitchen knives, hitting at the thing, and the mother calling the kid. If we could do something like that. But how do I create that? This was initial rough. I knew one thing, I have to achieve a chaos. To bring this alive in the montage, in the film, I was trying to attempt a chaos, and through that chaos, I was trying to build towards the tension. So I had to achieve that chaos. But even after the initial panel designs, I was not very satisfied that I have achieved it. So finally, this is what I tried to do. I broke up I didn't break the panels, the square forms, but I broke up their way they are aligned. They're aligned either top aligned or side aligned. So there is a symmetry, our eye flows. There's a Z vision, it is said that we always look left to right and top to bottom. So any designer will follow a Z vision. So I just broke everything up in this. And in fact, Debuda had a pointer too about this, I remember, saying that এটা ঠিক বোঝা যাচ্ছে না. I said that was the point. So, but to make sense to this, I took resource to typography. So when the text comes here, I have deliberately not put the original text. The moment the text comes here, it starts guiding your eye. It's almost like a ladder. It's defined the flow. And these two panels on the right-hand side of the broadsheet, they talk to each other over the panels. Just because of the text. Two different texts. So the entire broadsheet is made on one red American typewriter font, and there are these two people exchanging dialogue in a different text in a different color. The moment you see this design with the text, you know how your eye should move. And things start making sense in that chaos. I really had fun playing around with this. In fact, these are the three kinds of typography I used. Billy I used for the narrator's voice. Comic strips I used for the characters. Billy I thought was, I wanted the narrator's voice. If this was a film, it would have been an Irfan Khan giving a VO. Vulnerable, confused. I wanted that element to come out in the font. Similarly, this comic strips was about, there's so sharp vertical lines in this one. It's almost like the fences that we are constantly building around ourselves. Everybody is living within our panel. I am living within this panel. You are living within that panel. An American typewriter was a representation of the system, the typography for the news font that I had used. So that's what kind of puts everything in context. So if you look at a page like this, you see this red text is a voiceover. It's almost like an off-screen voice. While this woman is there, it's a news flash coming in. And then there is two people talking. And then there is a narrator's voice on top of on the sky space there above the building. I've tried to use that color also in that building. If you look at Chatujje, that is the system watching you, telling you that you're a Brahmin and others are not. So, in short, this in epilogue, I can only tell that while doing this, I realized more about myself than the world, that I realized how biased I am, how boxed in how we live within our own boxes. And maybe it was time to look at the world in a different way, open up the boundaries of the panels. And if this story makes anyone at least think twice about the biases inside their own, I'll be more than obliged. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
প্রথমেই বলি আমি তো সেরকমভাবে কমিক্স প্র্যাকটিস করি না। আমি আমি ছবি আঁকি এবং ধন্যবাদ পিনাকি দা এবং হোল এডিটোরিয়াল টিমকে আমাকে লং ফর্ম 2025-এ ইনভাইট করার জন্য, এবং থ্যাঙ্কস টু কেসিসি অ্যান্ড লং ফর্ম টু অর্গানাইজ দিস ইভেন্ট। আমি বাংলাতেই বলি। আমি বেসিক্যালি আমি বেতপুকুর নামের একটি ছোট গ্রাম থেকে আসছি এবং লাস্ট 5 ইয়ার্স আমি রুরাল জিনিসপত্র নিয়ে কথাবার্তা বলার চেষ্টা করি আমার প্র্যাকটিসের মধ্যে দিয়ে। প্রথমে আমি এই প্রেজেন্টেশনে লং ফর্মের জন্য যে কাজগুলো করেছি সেগুলো দেখাবো। হ্যাঁ, ওভার দ্য ইয়ার্স আমি যেটা আর কি প্রত্যক্ষ করেছি যে আমাদের বিভিন্ন রুরাল সাইটে অধিক কীটনাশক এবং বিভিন্ন সার এইসবের ব্যবহারের ফলে অনেক কৃষি জমি এখন আস্তে আস্তে পরিত্যক্ত হচ্ছে, সেগুলোতে আর চাষবাস সেরকমভাবে হচ্ছে না। আরও অনেক রিজনস আছে, তা এইটাই হচ্ছে তার মধ্যে একটি অন্যতম। তো সেটাই আমি লং ফর্মের প্রথম পেজে দেখিয়েছি। এরপরে হ্যাঁ, গ্রামীণ যে জমিগুলো, জলাভূমিগুলো, সেইগুলো ধীরে ধীরে আমাদের চাহিদার কারণে, চাহিদার বশবর্তী হয়ে বোঝা যাচ্ছে সেখানে ওভার দ্য ইয়ার্স বিল্ডিংস হচ্ছে বা অন্যান্য কাজকর্ম হচ্ছে। এর ফলে গ্রামীণ যে বাস্তুতন্ত্র সেটা তো মানে খুব ভালোভাবেই আর কি শেষ হয়ে যাচ্ছে। তো সেইটা আমি এই ছবিটার মধ্যে দিয়েছি। এবং এরপরে আমি খুব রিসেন্ট আমাদের ইমামিতেই একটি সোলো হয়েছে, মর্ফোলজি অফ ওয়াটার। এই জায়গা থেকে কিন্তু ওই কনসেপ্টটা আস্তে আস্তে ডেভেলপ করেছিল, ওটা আমি পরে আসবো। এবং একইভাবে মানে প্রয়োজনের অধিক তুলনায় যেভাবে গাছ কাটা হচ্ছে, এখনও আমরা যদি ইনস্টাগ্রাম সোশ্যাল মিডিয়াতে দেখি আরাবল্লী পর্বতের একটা হিউজ রেঞ্জ যে কেটে ফেলার চেষ্টা করা হচ্ছে। তো এরকম আমাদের বেঙ্গলের বিভিন্ন ছোট 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 জায়গায় অল্প অল্প করে কাটা হচ্ছে, কিন্তু এটা যখন ওয়াইডলি আমরা দেখছি তখন কিন্তু এটা একটা হিউজ ইম্প্যাক্ট ফেলছে আমাদের নেচারের মধ্যে। এবং একইভাবে মানে সেই পার্সপেক্টিভ থেকে এই জায়গাটা আমি হোল লং ফর্মে যা করেছি সেটা হচ্ছে আমি প্রিভিয়াসে যা দেখেছি এবং বর্তমানে যা দেখছি তার মধ্যে যে এই যে ডিফারেন্স হয়েছে এই লাস্ট 10 বছর 15 বছর ধরে, সেইটাকে আমি একদিকে প্রিভিয়াস এবং অন্যদিকে এখনকার কিছু পার্ট আমি এরকমভাবে তুলে ধরার চেষ্টা করেছি। সেম এখানে চাইল্ডহুড মানে মানে শিশু মনের বিকাশই হয় একটা খেলাধুলো ইত্যাদি থেকে। আমাদের ছোটোবেলায় যে ধরনের গেমস ছিল সেগুলো এখন অনেক মানে অধিক পড়াশুনোর থেকে বাইরেও আরও অনেক অ্যাক্টিভিটিসের কারণে সেই ন্যাচারাল গেমসগুলো হারিয়ে গেছে। এবং আমার বাড়িতেও আমার দিদির মেয়েরা আছে, আরও অনেকে আছে, সবাই খুব ইলেকট্রনিক গ্যাজেটের বেশি আর কি বশবর্তী হয়ে পড়ছে। এবং তারপরে তাদের যে খেলাধুলো ছোটাছুটি ওগুলো হয় না, ওটারই একটা মানে স্টোরি এখানে আমি ক্রিয়েট করেছি। দ্যাটস ইট। এরপরে মর্ফোলজি পোর্ট্রেট থেকে কিছু কাজ আমি এর আগেও বলেছি বিভিন্ন জায়গায় এবং এখনও বলছি আরেকবার, কারণ এখানে সব নতুন অডিয়েন্স রয়েছে। মর্ফোলজি অফ ওয়াটারের মূল কনসেপ্ট হচ্ছে আমার এসেছিল ওভার দ্য ইয়ার্স, এর আগেও বলেছি, যেভাবে গ্রামীণ জলভূমি আস্তে আস্তে আমাদের প্রয়োজনের তাগিদে হোক বা আনইউজ থাকার কারণে আস্তে আস্তে যেভাবে পরিত্যক্ত হয়েছে, এবং সেই জায়গা থেকে আমার এই মানে সব কাজগুলো পুরো এক্সিবিশনের কাজটা উঠে এসেছে। পরপর তুমি কাজগুলো দেখাও। এখানে আমার সেরকম প্রত্যেকটা কাজ নিয়ে বলার কিছু নেই। এই কাজগুলো আমি যখন আর্ট কলেজেরও আগে এবং তার পরে আর্ট কলেজে থাকার সময় প্রচুর আউটডোর্স করতাম। এবং ওই আউটডোর্স থেকে যে সমস্ত বিভিন্ন স্কেচ বা ওয়াটার কালার ছিল, তারপরে কিছু মানে লাস্ট 10 ইয়ার্সের অনেক ফটোগ্রাফস, সেগুলো থেকে মিলিয়ে মিশিয়ে আমি সব কটা কাজগুলো করেছি। পরপর দেখো। না আমি ক্যানভাসে করেছি একটা লিখে, মানে আমি বেসিক্যালি ওয়াটার কালারে কাজ করি লাস্ট 8-9 বছর থেকে। মানে আমি একটা ডিফারেন্ট মিডিয়াম, মানে মানে আমার জন্য ডিফারেন্ট মিডিয়াম অ্যাক্রিলিক, তো ওটাতে অ্যাপ্রোচ করেছি এই কাজগুলোতে। হ্যাঁ, না 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 না, আমি তো বলছি যে মানে ওভার দ্য ইয়ার্স আমি অনেক আউটডোর্স করেছি বিফোর মাই মানে গ্রাজুয়েশন। তো সেই সমস্ত আউটডোর্স যেগুলো ওয়াটার কালারে করেছি, এবং অনেক ফটোগ্রাফস এরকম আছে আউটডোর্স করতে গিয়ে নিয়েছিলাম, সেই সমস্ত কিছুই এই পার্টের মধ্যে আমি মানে যখন 10, না না একটাও লাইভ স্পটে না, সবই আমার স্টুডিও বেস প্র্যাকটিস এখানে যেটা। ইয়েস। না না বলো না। হ্যাঁ আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, তারপরে হ্যাঁ, যেহেতু আজকের এই প্রোগ্রামটা স্টোরি টেলিংয়ের উপর আছে, স্টোরি মেকিং, আমি এই কাজগুলো আমি যখন বড়দায় রেসিডেন্সি করেছিলাম স্পেস স্টুডিওতে, তো ওখানে গিয়ে আমার আমার রিয়েলাইজেশন একটা নতুন স্পেসের সাথে আমি একটা একটা স্পেসে রয়েছি, এবং আমি যখন স্টেট চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে, ওখানকার ল্যান্ড চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে, ল্যান্ডস্কেপ চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে, এবং সব মানে এন্টার আমার পার্সপেক্টিভটাই চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাচ্ছে, এবং নতুন প্লেসের সাথে আমার যেভাবে যেভাবে বিল্ড হচ্ছিল, মেন্টালি যে বিল্ড বিল্ড আপ তৈরি হচ্ছিল, সেই ওখানকার নর্মাল বার্ড, আমাদের এখানে যেমন শালিক পাখি, ওখানে ময়ূর হচ্ছে নর্মাল, মানে ঘর থেকে বেরোলেই ময়ূর দেখা যাচ্ছে, এই সমস্ত কিছু, এবং আমার স্পেসের, আমার স্টুডিও স্পেসের বিভিন্ন উইন্ডোজ, আউটডোর স্পেস, ইনডোর স্পেস, এই সমস্ত কিছু নিয়ে আমি এই কম্পোজিশনটা করেছি, এবং তখনকার এন্টারলি পুরো ওয়ার্কটা ছিল আমি একটা নতুন জায়গায় গিয়ে কিভাবে সেই জায়গায় আমি মানসিকভাবে স্থিত হচ্ছি। মানে ওখানে এরকম প্রচুর লোকজন আসতো, এবং আমি একটা স্পেস থেকে সেই 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 জিনিসপত্রগুলো দেখতাম, তাদের অ্যাক্টিভিটিস, তাদের নাচা গানা, এবং সেলফিস তৈরি করতো, রিলস বানাতো, এই সমস্ত অ্যাক্টিভিটিসগুলো আমি আমি তো খুব সাইলেন্ট একটা স্পেসে থাকি, এবার যখন আমি এরকম একটা হিউজ স্পেসে গিয়ে পড়লাম, তখন সেগুলো আমি দূর থেকে কিভাবে দেখছি, সেইগুলো নিয়ে এই কাজগুলো, এবং মানে এই সব কিছু ওই হওয়ার পর হচ্ছিল তখন, এই প্রথম প্রথম যে কাজটা করেছি ওই কাজটা কিন্তু এই স্কেচ থেকে এসছে। মানে এই প্রথমে গিয়ে এরকম স্কেচ বিল্ড করছিলাম, এবং তারপরে আস্তে আস্তে ওরকম হ্যাঁ। ওখানকার লোকাল যারা মানে আমার স্টুডিও প্রেমিসেস ক্লিন করতো, এবং পুরো এরিয়াটা ক্লিন করতো। তাদের সাথে আমি রেগুলার মিট করতাম, কথাবার্তা বলতাম এবং তাদেরও পোর্ট্রেট করেছিলাম। পরের পেজে আছে, এই যে। এই কাজগুলো থেকেও মানে এগুলো ইনিশিয়াল স্কেচ, যার থেকে বড় বড় কাজগুলো ডেভেলপ হয়েছে। মানে আগের যে কাজটা ছিল তার মধ্যে এই কাজগুলো পরে এসেছে আর কি। আমার মানে স্টুডিও স্পেস, লিভিং স্পেস, এইগুলো অ্যাজ আ ডেইলি ডায়েরি আমি এরকমভাবে মেনটেন করতাম তখন, এবং কন্টিনিউয়াসলি কাজ করতাম এরকম। এইগুলো একটু পুরনো কাজ, 2024-এর। এখানে যে স্টোরিটা, এই বাড়িটা আমি একবার ভিজিট করে এসেছি এবং আঁকা শুরু করেছি, এবং পরের বার যখন ভিজিট করতে গেছি ওখানে একটা গাছ ছিল। তো ওই গাছটার সাথে মানে একটা ঝড়ে ওই গাছটা পুরো পড়ে মানে ভেঙে গেছে। তো তখন ওই বাড়ির মহিলার সাথে আমি কথা বলেছিলাম, এবং মানে তার ইমোশনাল বন্ড উইথ মানে ওনার কোর্টইয়ার্ডের মধ্যে যে গাছটা রয়েছে তার সাথে যে একটা তার ইমোশনাল বন্ড, সেটা নিয়ে অনেকক্ষণ কথা হয়েছে। এর জন্য আমি এই গাছটাকে এরকম ট্রান্সপারেন্টলি রেখেছি, যে এরকম ভেঙে গেলেও মানে তার মনে বা স্মৃতিতে, মেমোরিজে মানে সেই জিনিসটা রয়েছে। একটা খুব ছোট ছোট জিনিস থাকে না, যেগুলোর সাথে মানুষের একটা মেন্টাল অ্যাটাচমেন্ট তৈরি হয়, সেই রকম একটা জায়গা থেকে ওই কাজটা আছে। এই কাজটা অন্নপূর্ণা আমরা সবাই জানি, মানে অন্নপূর্ণার আইকনিক মানে ফটো, যেটা ইমেজ, সেটা হচ্ছে শিব পার্বতীর কাছে যাচ্ছে এবং তাকে ভিক্ষা দিচ্ছে এরকম। এই এই আমাদের ওখানে যে ধান চাষ হয় এবং তারপরে বিভিন্ন এরকম সেজে আমাদের বাড়িতে বাড়িতে আসে, এবং আমি এখানে অন্নপূর্ণা বলতে আমাদের লোকালস মানে আমাদের ঘরের যে মায়েরা মেয়েরা রয়েছে তারাই তো তাদেরকে ফিট করে। তো আমি আমি অন্নপূর্ণা বলতে আমার মা বা আমার জেঠিমা, আমার পাশের বাড়ির মহিলাটা, ওনাকে দেখিয়েছি। ওয়েটিং ফর বোর্ডস, আমাদের ওখানে একটা জায়গা আছে, অনেক দিন আগে ভিজিট করেছিলাম। ওখানে না সকালবেলা হোল দিনের জন্য কিনে নিয়ে যেতে হয়, মানে কিনে নিয়ে যায়, লেবার ক্রয় করা যায় ওরকমভাবে। তো সবাই এরকম লাইন দিয়ে দাঁড়িয়ে থাকে, এবার লেবার ক্রয় করে। ওটা আমি ফার্স্ট টাইম দেখেছি বাবার সাথে গিয়ে, অনেক বছর আগে। সেই মেমোরিজ থেকেই এটা করা। এবং নদীর ওই পারে হচ্ছে ফিল্ড, আর এই দিকে হচ্ছে ভিলেজ। তো ওরা প্রতিদিন ওই পারে নৌকা করে যায় এবং অনেকটা টাইম একটা বোটের জন্য ওয়েট করে। তো সেই জায়গা থেকে এই ছবিটা এসেছিল, ওয়েটিং ফর বোট। দিস ইজ ফ্রম গাজন, আমাদের খুব মানে সব থেকে বেঙ্গলের একটা প্রাচীন ফেস্টিভ্যাল, রয়্যাল ফেস্টিভ্যাল। এবং এরপরে আমি গাজন নিয়ে ওই এরপরের পেজটা আছে, ওখানে আমি একটা স্টোরি বুক করেছিলাম। এগুলো গ্রোভ, এই ছবিটা আমি লকডাউনের সময় করেছিলাম, এবং এই নামকরণের পেছনের কারণ হচ্ছে দিস ইজ নট আ নর্মাল ফিশিং। এটা হচ্ছে যখন জলটা কমে যায় তখন খোঁজাখুঁজি হয়, এটা একটা খুব। তো এখানে আমার যে রিয়েলাইজেশন ছিল এই ছবিটার পেছনে, সেটা হচ্ছে যারা মানে এই যে খুঁজছে, এবার খুঁজতে খুঁজতে হাতে আসতেও পারে, নাও আসতে পারে। ঠিক তেমনি লকডাউনের সময় আমরা সবাই নিজের মতন করে কিছু একটা খোঁজার চেষ্টা করছিলাম। তো সেই জায়গা থেকে এই দুরকম মিনিংস থেকে এই ছবিটা আর কি এসছে। These are my early works, 2020. ওয়াল অফ গালুডিজ আর্ট, এই ছবিটা নিয়ে একটু বলি। আমি গালুডি ভিজিট করার পর এসে এই ছবিটা করেছিলাম। এবং গালুডি ভিলেজে আপনারা গেলে দেখতে পারবেন, ওখানে মূল ট্র্যাডিশন হচ্ছে প্রত্যেকটা বাড়িতে এরকম জিওমেট্রিক শেপ রয়েছে, এবং বিভিন্ন রকম এরকম ফলিয়েজ দিয়ে সেগুলোকে সাজানো রয়েছে। তো আমি যখন ওখান থেকে এসেছি, ওদের যে মেইন ট্র্যাডিশন যেটা আমি লক্ষ্য করেছি, প্রত্যেকটা বাড়িতে এরকম আঁকা রয়েছে, এবং ওখানকার যে লোকাল অবজেক্টস, ধানের গোলা, খাটিয়া, তুলসী মন্দির বা কুয়ো, ওই লোকাল অবজেক্টসগুলো আমি তার মধ্যে এঁকেছি। মানে এইভাবে আমি ওই ভিলেজটাকে রিপ্রেজেন্ট করার চেষ্টা করেছি এই ওয়ালটার মাধ্যমে। থ্যাংক ইউ।
This is also important because we are heavy traditional winner, army, or আমরা PR artists, you know, by chance. কিন্তু they are real artists, but সেখানেও how well they do it and how. So basically আমরা শঙ্কর থেকে শুনবো। আমি জাস্ট একটু বলে রাখি, we are extremely proud that he is here, মানে শান্তনু and শঙ্খ কি আমরা অনেক চেষ্টা করছিলাম শান্তনু শঙ্খ যদি আমাদের লং ফর্মে কন্ট্রিবিউট করে। So they were invited, they were not chosen. Okay, let us make this clear, and we are actually proud that their work is here. Please, Sean.
Thank you.
Do you want to do this or do I do it? Yeah, I do it.
Thank you, Pinaki. Thank you, KCC and Team Longform for inviting me. My story is about hunger, and I'm really sorry that you people are waiting. It's almost already 2 o'clock. You people, you may be hungry. So am I. So just be little, patient, full. So basically, the story is I work with Mahabharat. I work with the stories of Mahabharat, but I have done 2 volumes with Shivaji Bandyopadhyay. He has been the storyteller. But simultaneously, I keep telling my own stories. I have done several stories of Mahabharat in the graphic novel format. Presently, I'm working on the Aranya Parva. So that I'm doing alone. And this story is a story that is there in Mahabharat in the Anushashan Parva. It's a very, thank you, Pinaki. Pinaki himself made this presentation for me, and a student of mine called Shinjini, she also helped me to incorporate some of the images. So I'm really thankful to them. So this story is about, there's a situation when after the war, we more or less we know the story of Mahabharat. It's a great poem. So there was a situation after the war, after 18 when Yudhishthir became the king, Bhishma didn't die. So he had Ichha Mrityu, but he didn't wish for his death because he was waiting for the auspicious moment. And in those days, Yudhishthir already had become the king, and Yudhishthir used to come to Bhishma almost every day, and he used to ask different kind of stories from Bhishma with a view to learn about politics, about sociology, about anthropology, about people, because he is the king. He has now become the king. So he has to gather the knowledge of kingship. So Bhishma, on his deathbed, with a bed of arrows, we know. So he used to tell stories. So this story comes, after a question raised by Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir simply asked, I have summarized the story. The actual story is a little kind of, you just go back to that, this page. So you can see Bhishma is lying on the deathbed, and Yudhishthir comes and he asks a story. He asks, grandfather, tell me something. when the dharma is absent. Now you should understand, we have translated the Sanskrit word dharma into religion. But dharma doesn't mean religion, first of all. It's quite problematic the way we read the word dharma nowadays. We in Mahabharata, in Ramayana, we know the meaning of dharma. At least it's a fluid word. It's not a fixed word like religion. So the meaning keep changing. So sometimes it's duty, sometimes it's profession, sometimes the act by someone, sometimes the presence of mind. So here Yudhishthir is asking that if dharma is absent, so when kings are stealing, যখন রাজা চুরি করা শুরু করে, when people have lost their faith on the kings, what a king should do, how should we act? That was the question. It's a long elaborate question. I have summarized, concised it. So then Bhishma started telling about this story on hunger. Now ektu can you please go in the beginning of the slide? So what I usually do, it's my kind of parallel practice. Whenever I get time, I have small sketchbooks. So I go outside. I primarily go to the rail station or on the road or something. I simply stand and I draw sketches. I love to draw. So these are, you can see these train station. So people are sitting, or you can see faces. So you can see that guy, he had like chicken pox. So you can see the marks on his face. So these are actual people. আস্তে দাও আসুক, খুব জ্বালাতন করছে এই মেশিনটা আজকে। So anyway, so when I started working on Mahabharata, one of the primary inspirations was these people. So because in Mahabharata you can tell the stories of prince and princes and kings and ministers, but what about the people? You will see that there are pockets when you can actually read about the people. Also, I found there's a striking fact, I should say. Can you go forward? Oh, if it yeah, manual কি করা যায় দেখো তো। ওই কোনাটা কেটে দাও। হ্যাঁ, থ্যাংক ইউ। একটু নেক্সট করে দাও, নেক্সট। Stop here. So the striking fact is, you may see all these people lying in train station. Now you simply you forget, this is in 2025 I did. You simply just forget about this sandal, the chappal, and you look at this guy. You can see this guy, it's quite a normal guy in 2025 AD. If I tell you this guy used to belong in 2025 BC, it won't be a problem for you. You would believe on it. So somehow the stories of these guys have not changed. We have changed. I have this microphone, I have this shoe, I have these jeans, I have this shirt, this projector, I have this screen, these chairs, these speakers, Bose speakers, everything is there. These are not from the era of Mahabharata. But if you look at this guy, the story of this guy has not changed. So what I do in my book, I simply get these people and I gave them kind of almost like I give them a kind of characters in the story of Mahabharata. So when you are reading the Mahabharata without knowing, you are seeing people from our era, but that is not creating any kind of jerk in the narration procedure. So just like that, I thought of narrating this story on hunger, where actually there is an occasion of 12 years of famine according to Bhishma. So 12 years of famine, and the sage of all sages, Vishwamitra, he was hungry, and he was so hungry, he stole dog meat, not even dog meat, the half-cooked meat of dog's intestine from the house of a Chandal. That is the story. And in the narration, Vishwamitra was stealing, and Chandal, he somehow caught Vishwamitra, and Chandal said, "What are you doing? You are a Brahmin. You are not supposed to enter the house of a Chandal, because you will lose your position." Vishwamitra said, okay, but I am hungry. So he actually had stolen the dog meat, and that is not even the meat. Chandal told Vishwamitra, this is not even the meat, this is the intestine of the dog. Dog is one of the most obnoxious animals. You Brahmin, you are not supposed to eat. You Brahmin, you may eat bull, you may eat goat, you may eat horse, but not an animal like dog, which has 5 claws. The Brahmins are forbidden according to Rig Veda. According to Mahabharata, Brahmins are forbidden to eat animals which has claws. They can only eat animals which has hooves. That's why they used to eat bull or horse or buffalo or goat. So Chandal was trying to give him the dharma, idea of dharma, and Brahmin was constantly answering, I am hungry, so I've forgotten everything. So that is the story. Interestingly, in 2025, when I'm narrating this story sounds very contemporary to you because of our socio-political scenario. I'm not making this story. The story is there in Mahabharata. So how I thought, just these 2 images, when Pinaki asked me to do something for long form, these 2 images actually, it's the beginning of this particular, because all these stories I have read and I live with these stories, I thought of working with this story because of these 2 images, this dog and this guy is lying down, and you can see his belly and everything. He's of course hungry, and probably he's hungry for eternity. আমরা জানিও না কত হাজার বছর ধরে এরকম ভাবে না খেয়েই শুয়ে ঘুমোচ্ছে, ঠিক আছে? তো can you go little forward, or you can see these people or these faces. So this is exactly where I get my inspirations from. So you can see this in local train, these guys will find I don't have to travel by local train anymore, but I do have to travel by, I take metro. So you can see people are standing and they are sleeping when they are standing. It's quite a normal visual. It's not something very unusual or disturbing visual, but imagine they're like this for 1 hour, 2 hours, and they're sleeping. So these are my initial kind of inspirations for people. And next. So this is also, you can see, I simultaneously for kind of, I do for my bread and butter, I do some projects, from abroad, simply because they pay well. So this is also a marketplace. Presently I'm working on a project that is situated in Austria. It's for a publication house based in New York. So this also, at the same time, I was doing this project. So you can also see the intestine and pigs and everything, they're there. So, and so I thought of playing with this entire gut, the intestine, and everything that we eat, and how it gets digested. And nowadays we have a choice of doing intermittent fasting, because that's our choice, that we love to be in a certain kind of lifestyle just to look good, be healthy. But there are people who doesn't have any choice but to be hungry, not for the health. And unfortunately, in 2025, this could be my subject of talking. আমি এত কিছু করে এত কিছু ইয়ে করে সাবজেক্টটা এখনো এটা নিয়েও কাজ করা যেতে পারে। এটা একটা অদ্ভুত ব্যাপার। But primarily I concentrate on the stories of Mahabharata or mythological stories. So please, so this is the dog anatomy. So we are talking about this meat of this area, and this area is called Jaghan in Sanskrit, যেখান থেকে বাংলা জঘন্য শব্দটা এসেছে. And the word Jaganya came from the word Jaghon means this crotch area, the kuchki area. So this is the meat that Vishwamitra would, steal from the house of Chandal. Pinaki, can you go forward? So next, so this is the 12 years of famine, no food is there. And also I would, if you look at Longform, this editorial team, they have done a parallel narration, because they kept my story and Shantanu his story together side by side. So when you will finish my story, the next image is that drought, that khora. So lot of people, including me, I thought, when did I do this? Because it looks like the same narration going. কারণ আমার গল্পটা হচ্ছে ফামিন খরা নিয়ে, তারপরে গল্পটা শুরু হচ্ছে শান্তনুর দুটো ছবি, যেখানে খরা একটা খুব ড্রটের ইয়ে, ওটা দেখে মনে হয় ওটা একই গল্প চলছে। হ্যাঁ, এবং নট অনলি দ্যাট, এন্ড অফ দ্য বিগিনিং এরকম কিছু একটা লেখা ছিল, ওটা দেখে মনে হচ্ছে আমার গল্পটা শেষ হয়ে ওটার মধ্যে ঢুকছে। প্রিয়ঙ্করের কাজটা ছিল যেখান থেকে আমার গল্পটা ঢুকছে, ওটা মনে হচ্ছে একই সঙ্গে যাচ্ছে। সো ইটস এ ওয়ান্ডারফুলি ক্রাফটেড, কি বলবো, কাইন্ড অফ বুক, যেটা আমি বলবো লং ফর্ম এই ক্ষেত্রে করেছে। সো দিস ফামিন, Vishwamitra is searching for food. So this situation was so gross that according to Mahabharata, people were eating their own flesh. So next. Right. So then Vishwamitra find a house of a Chandal, and Chandal is someone who is outcasted. He comes like all this Varna Jati, system. He comes outside the caste system. But interestingly, a Chandal is someone whose according to the scripture, Chandal is someone whose mother is Brahmin, but father is a Shudra. So that means if a woman is having sex with Shudra, the son would be called Chandal. So you can understand the patriarchy here. That woman is, she cannot, choose a Shudra as her lover. If she does that, their son would be called as Chandal, and Chandal has to live in Shamshan, and he has to live on the kind of food that is left, during the kind of all the ritual of burning a body and everything. তো মরার পোশাক, মরার খাবার, এইটা খেয়ে চান্ডালের বেঁচে থাকতে হবে। So this is the house of a Chandal. So it's almost like he collected everything from the Shamshan and crematorium ground, And Vishwamitra entered, and he was hungry, and he saw the dog meat. I thought of making like a little bit of grotesque, like the, manga or Korean narration, but later I abandoned that plan. Because there is also something, one good, suggestion. One guy told me once that you may do, not Pinaki and his team, they are very free, but they told me one thing. They say, Shankar, you may do a lot of things, but you remember, if anyone file a case against you in Vilaspur, would you go there every month? So I said, no, this is not my job. So I may, censor a few panels. So he was looking at and look at the posture, how he is sitting. This is Vishwamitra, sage of all sages. You must understand, Vishwamitra was a Kshatriya who became Brahmin by his karma. So he actually achieved the Brahminhood. It was not like keu jonmei Brahman hoye gelo. So being Brahmin was a very big thing for him. So imagine the dimension of this story. How they are using this character Vishwamitra. So Vishwamitra is sitting, and Chandal is looking, and please next. So then Chandal is asking, who are you? Vishwamitra is say that I'm sage Vishwamitra. Chandal is saying, okay. Vishwamitra is Kshatriya who became Brahmin by his own effort, that food would not help you. So Vishwamitra is saying, I am hungry, and there comes the sanglap or dialogue. It's entire thing, based on the kind of hunger and what you should do, the act, etc., etc. So now I just had taken a little liberty, that thought of making the panels like the stomach and gut and everything. So this you can do in comics, this you cannot do in film, cinema. Because a lot of people think that comics is kind of like cinema. It's not true. Comics is a separate language, completely separate language. It has certain liberty. You may do certain things, because when you're reading, these two pages comes together. So you may read, it's all about the reading. So you may read this thing first, then you can start reading over there. It's up to you, because it's a spread, right? It's a journey by the reader. How you're reading, that makes something a comics. In fact, we made a beautiful exhibition, in Birla. So it was all about reading. How, for instance, those images in these halls, you may read those images as comics. So next. So you can see this entire, it seems that the intestine of this Chandal, because this Chandal, he knows what hunger is. He's not like us, ki amra intermediate fasting korchi. O jane je hunger kake bole. To or ei jibon or kache is larger than life, the entire gut system. And Vishwamitra is trapped over there. So you can see he's there, and he's talking, and you can see the stars and everything in the background, the sky and everything, the liver and the stomach and the intestine and everything. So it's kind of a story that's more like going on and on for eternity. And that Vishwamitra is telling that how you are not supposed to give me gyan about dharma and all. I know all these things. I'm hungry, so I'm going to steal the food right now. So finally, Chandal, he tried to convince, but he couldn't. And next, and then the entire narration, it happens inside the kind of intestine. And Vishwamitra had taken the food, and he left the Chandal hungry. And Vishwamitra, with that food, dog intestine, he offered that food to the Parjanno Dev, kind of form of Indra, the rain god, as hobbo. Mane oita diyo, he offered that food to the god, and God, after getting the food, that food, of course, the dog's meat, the god gave rain after 12 years. So Vishwamitra, he knew the meaning of hunger, and then God gave the rain for 12 years, and next. And thus the story ends. So when Yudhishthir learned the story, Yudhishthir said, what kind of story is this? Like, I asked you a story about dharma and all. So, you're supposed to tell something, with half closed eyes and all what you have to do, what you have, you shouldn't do, all this prohibition and negation, how to wash your feet, how to wash your hands, etc., etc. And what kind of story is this? A Brahmin is stealing the food of a Chandal, and then he's offering that to God, and God is, giving rain, and the Brahmin is saying, I'm hungry, I've forgotten all the text and scriptures. What does that even mean? So Bhishma said, this is the story. This is the law. I have translated this as law, the dharma. This is the laws of ancients. So you have to understand, you don't judge the story. It's up to you how you read the story, and the story ends there. So this is the kind of style of Mahabharata. They comes up with a situation, a question, and for thousands of years we are seeking for answers. আমরা উত্তরগুলো আমাদের মতো করে পড়ি, গল্পগুলো আমাদের মতো করে উত্তর দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করি, আর এই উত্তরগুলো পাল্টে 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 যায় সময়ের অনুসারে যখন প্রয়োজন হয়। যেমন আজকে 2025-এ I have chosen this story for a particular, of course I have a purpose, আমি কেন এই গল্পটা চুজ করছি। So when I'm choosing this story, I do have a statement, and when they are printing that, they also do have a statement, right? আমি তো একটা সুপার হিরো হিসেবে আমি যখন দেখাচ্ছি লার্জার দ্যান লাইফে চন্ডালের ওইটা, so I do have a statement. But Mahabharata is, it gives us this space to, create this argument, to talk about it, to raise the voice. So this is how it ends. Thank you.